We are in a wild economic environment right now. And I keep on hearing when it comes to sports cards, and especially high-end sports cards, hey, if you stay rare, stay low pop, you're going to be okay. I'm going to talk about why that might be a really bad idea in certain cases. Stick around. To all my sports card collectors, investors, all of my collectibles friends. How are we? How are we doing? I hope that everybody is having a great day so far. If you're new here and you want some sports card content, collectibles content with a little bit of finance stuff slipped in there, then please hit that subscribe button, the notifications, karate chop the notification bell. Really karate chop it, but you know what I mean. And then the likes, please. If you could throw some likes my way, I would really appreciate it. Helps me spider these videos out to the masses. Also, connect with me on IG at SportsCardDad, and I'm also on the Twitter machine, the SportsCardDad. All right, I was actually watching a video by Jay, one of my hobby friends. I like this guy, Jay, from Mojo Sports Cards. He did a video today, and it was kind of about sports card market crash. And this is not necessarily just a reaction to that, but as I was watching it and I was just kind of listening to what some of those guys were saying, not that I disagreed with them or agreed with them or whatever, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but there were some comments that were made there that I want to just kind of react to a little bit because I think it's important, especially for new people getting in that are trying to figure this game out a little bit. What we've seen recently in the sports card market over the last 12 months is on the higher end, a lot of the high-end sports cards have been somewhat unaffected. Some have gone down, a lot of them have still gone up, and then the ultra rare stuff are still setting record prices in a lot of instances. Now, the lower to mid-tier type sports cards, that's really taken a hit over the last 12 months. You've seen people move out of base cards, and they're getting into more of the rare inserts, the rare type stuff, which makes sense. You want to move to what you feel like is safe because, you know, that base card stuff, they've printed off a lot of it. There's a lot of them out there. And so as people move out of the hobby, they become disinterested. That's kind of the lowest common denominator. They get rid of that first. Makes sense. Where I'm seeing a lot of vulnerability in the sports card market right now is in modern players. And I know that, you know, there's a lot of people out there that are like, you know what, vintage is boring. And this is not a video saying vintage is the best. The vintage has its own issues as well. But a lot of times modern is chased because it's guys that are playing now and it's fun. And it's like, oh, I'm going to buy this player this card. And if he does well, maybe the card goes up. And it's kind of a fun speculation play. But here's something that we have to think about. I mean, when I was a kid, going back to the early 90s, I was buying guys like Harold Miner. They called him Baby Jordan at the time. A lot of you guys are not going to know who the heck I'm talking about. Calbert Cheaney, another one of these guys. Larry Johnson was a huge draft pick coming out in 1991, I believe is his rookie card. And Larry Johnson actually had a pretty decent career. Reminds me a little bit of Zion. There's been comparisons to him just as far as the size and the power and everything else. But anyway, these guys were, you know, kind of the prospects of the day. They were guys like, you know, Shaq was kind of the monster prospect in 91. And then you had some of these other guys, 91, 92, you had some of these other guys as well that people were really excited about. But what's different about then versus now is when I go to buy Calbert Cheaney rookies or Harold Miner rookie cards, those are fairly basic cards. Now, at the time, those were pretty cool. Like,
oh, would you look at that?
Yeah, well...
Would you look at that?
Yeah, there's a few more blemishes on the card.
Oh, my gosh, just look at it.
The card is not perfect.
Just look at it. Just look at it.
Yeah, well...
What the heck is that? Oh, look at this. You got me running all around the car.
Harold Miner's got a nice Fleer Ultra rookie card. Back then, that was a nice looking card. I love that card, especially compared to the cardboard that was there from 1988 before. 1989 Upper Deck Baseballs, kind of that first ultra glossy card. So all the new glossy finishes and stuff in those late 80s, early 90s stuff, everybody was like, woo, fancy. Now, of course, it's all real fancy, right? But the difference was the risk was a lot smaller because there wasn't a lot of high-priced cards for these guys. So like Calbert Cheaney might have had a handful of rookie cards. Harold Miner, handful of rookie cards. He didn't have a $10,000 RPA. You know, he didn't have a $50,000 one of one. And so the combination of the modern sports card market of the risk attached to that modern player not working out, linked with the fact that these guys have 50, 75, 80 billion different rookie cards, and then all of those rookie cards have parallels with zebra skin on them, or whatever, the ostrich beak, is on the card or whatever the hell they got on it. But there's 1,000 different parallels. Guys have like 100 one-of-ones now. So what's happened is, and this could be the fact that we're trying to get hits and everything. There's hits. This is a hit. That's a hit. When really nothing's a hit, because you've got so many different parallels and different types of, these special cards. Everyone gets a participation trophy. Here's your participation trophy parallel in every pack. And those cards, when they come through, a lot of them are beautiful cards that are basically worthless. So that is the difference between what was then and this was now. And so that's where I see some huge vulnerability on the high end. When I look at guys, look at like Zion Williamson. Zion Williamson is a guy that monster draft class between Luka and Trey and Zion and Ja and all these other rookies that have come through. We got some exciting rookies. We've got LaMelo, we've got Ant-Man. You've got a lot of exciting rookies in basketball. Same on football, on the football side. You've got Justin Herbert, you got Mahomes, you got all these new guys coming through that everybody is excited about. But again, the difference is that now, everyone's moving away from base, because remember, base cards are bad. Base cards are bad. But the one thing that base is, it has become now that everything's kind of corrected on that lower to mid-end side, is base is affordable. So if you are someone that just wants to have a card of a player, you're not necessarily worried about values, A, but then also B, maybe you're just like, I don't want to put capital into like a $10,000 Justin Fields card. I'll just get a $10 Justin Fields card. If the Justin Fields card goes up to $20, then great. If it goes to $0, I'm out $10. Now it's a high stakes gambling game. Now it is literally like scratch off tickets. Everyone's throwing into breaks trying to get these monster cards. And again, I understand the fun of that. I understand the sports betting side of that, but understand that that is something that was absent in 1990. And some would say, well, that's because there was no fun back then. Okay, fine. Great. If you're big into breaks and you're big into opening expensive boxes, then fine. But that is definitely a big risk factor, especially with everything going on in the world today, with massive inflation, with debts, the country's debt, people's individual credit card debt. Everything is in kind of a wonky place. And so I feel like now is the time really for my family, especially, we're looking at just where can we tighten things up? How can we buckle it down a little bit? Just tie down the hatches a little bit and just make sure that we're doing everything that we can to just kind of take our time with different things and really kind of analyze and research. What's great about this now is now we're in a point where the whole like do your own research thing, I feel like I do 95% of it is the research and the other part is the buying part, and that's really what it should be. It should be taking time, and whether we're talking about sports cards, collectibles, or any other type of buy, sell, investment, whatever you want to call it, it's all good to just kind of take your time in those things. And based on these kind of macroeconomic factors, I do think that the high end will also take a hit in the sense that in the short term, and I'm talking about in my estimation, and I'm just guessing, obviously we're speculating in the video, but in general, I'm looking in the short run. I'm looking over the next few years of things being a little bit tight. I do believe in sports cards, certain collectibles over a long time horizon. It's something that people just don't talk about very much. There's so much of the quick money type stuff, or, just which player is going to pan out in the next couple of years or whatever it is. And that is all fine. And there's nothing wrong with short-term buys and sells. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. But I just don't see a whole lot of, really content or a lot of talk just about what are we holding on to long-term. And long-term doesn't have to be for the rest of your life. I joke about, I'm going to be buried with 89 score football cards. And I probably will. Actually, just to be funny, I do want to be buried with 1989 score football cards. I think it'd be funny, but also because I feel like those cards are an important part of my childhood. And I just think it would make sense. I think it would just make total sense. So yes, I will take some cards to the grave, but in reality, for your long term, that might be 5 years, 10 years, it might be 20 years, it might be a 30-year horizon, it might be 50 years, whatever that is. But the point is that it doesn't have to be today. It doesn't have to be that we're, just buying this and then we're selling it in 6 weeks or in 6 months. But holding, hodling, or just collecting, I love how it's like everyone gets all caught up in the collector versus investor. Really, a collector is just a long-term investor. I know there's some people who are just collecting random things that they don't care if it's worth zero, it goes to zero, and that's fine. But in essence, we're talking about a lot of the same things. It's a long-term collector / investor, whatever it is. Because for me, I want to see how some of the stuff does over time. And for me, too, if there is a drop in price on certain things, I will look to buy in. You know, we have been in a position, and we talk about it all the time on the channel. The last 2 years, we were all in this kind of euphoria, trillions of dollars pouring into the economy. We don't know what to make of it. That money's got to go somewhere. And yes, a lot of that money went to bills. People lost their jobs, etc. Yes, it definitely did. But when you put out blanket stimulus, there's also a lot of money that went into all the other things, whether it be collectibles or crypto or stocks or real estate, or whatever that was, it went and did a lot of different places. The money's got to filter out somewhere. And now we pay for it on the back end where our money is worth less. And now groceries cost more and gas costs more and all that stuff. Anyway, I won't bore you with too much of the macroeconomic stuff, but the main gist of the video is that I do think that high end. Now, the other part is we have to define what is high end. I think that there are cards that are in the high end that shouldn't necessarily be considered in the high end. The ultra high end is going to be the Michael Jordan Green PMGs, and it's going to be the Honus Wagner T206, the 52 tops Mickey Mantle. That's the ultra high end. But the part that I really want to watch as far as collectibles and everything goes, I think there will be price dips, but where is kind of that line, that barrier to where it's kind of like this stuff does okay, and this stuff we are seeing declines? Because I think that that's going to be very fascinating to watch. You know, is it going to be $25,000 cards and up that kind of hold on and keep on doing their movement upward, or is that threshold $100,000 cards or sports memorabilia and up? That's such a huge thing, and that's what I want to see. And of course, with rarity, low pop counts, it does factor in when you're talking about very important, iconic type cards. It does factor in. And there will be price discovery on certain cards where, you know, people weren't into them and then they are into them. That will happen. There will be segments of the hobby that do grow. See, the other part of this equation is there's a lot of new money, there's a lot of interest in cards, and that part of the hobby, a lot of the business stuff in the hobby is going gangbusters. It's bustling, it's bullish. So this has nothing to do with the actual hobby having good funding or having companies that are interested, all of that stuff. No. The hobby has funding. The business is growing. It's just we've got a bunch of crazy macroeconomic stuff going on right now, and we don't know exactly what that's going to look like, the time horizon of that. You know, is it going to be fairly flat for a couple of years, or is this going to be like 3 months and then we're kind of out of it and we're doing our thing and everyone's doing great? I just want to make sure that for me personally, I'm kind of dollar cost averaging out on the stuff that I believe in, stuff that I like. And you know, if you watch my channel, it's a combination for me of I'm collecting stuff that I think is awesome, that I also think is at a good price point. I am not a high-end buyer at all by any stretch of the imagination. I know when the Suns just lost, I got some pings because I've got a couple of decent Devin Booker rookie cards. One of them I bought at the Dallas show about a year ago. One of the more expensive cards I've bought at about $1,200. It's his courtside, or his select silver courtside in a PSA 9. And at the time, I thought it was a pretty good price. I still don't think I got it at a horrible price, even though I'm sure after that last game it's going to drop. But you know what I told those people? Devin Booker's 25. You know, I would be more concerned if I was holding Chris Paul, frankly, because Chris Paul's at the end. You know, he's blown yet another 2-0 series lead. And there's a lot of question marks around Chris Paul. I assume he's probably going to continue to play. How long can he play at a high level? But is he going to be known as that guy that had a really great career that just could not finish in the playoffs? And what does that look like for his hobbydom? I'm not really sure. So I'm okay having Devin Booker at 25 years old, and I'll hold on to a couple of his stuff. But that's the other part. We talk about the modern players. I don't have a boatload of any modern player, any one particular modern player. If there's a modern player I like to follow, I'll grab a couple cards for them. But for the most part, not heavily focused on the modern players. It's mainly Hall of Famers, it's vintage or whatever, or just kind of off stuff. Anyway, guys, let me know what your thoughts are on this, because I think this is really interesting conversation when you break down what is high end. Because we always kind of get into this like the high end will do fine, the low pop high end, you know, the ultra expensive expensive. Well, will it? And what does that mean? What's the threshold? What is your threshold? What do you consider high end? What do you consider middle, kind of mid tier? Let me know that in the comments below. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Guys, thank you very much for joining me again here for another video. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.